Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 272, Amber Guyger, police murder. This is it's a short episode on Amber Guyger, who's a police officer in Dallas, who got off of a long shift, went to her apartment, actually parked at the wrong level in the apartment complex she was in. And the apartment complex had multiple layers of very similar appearing apartments. She sees her door is ajar when she walks up to her apartment and thinks that somebody intruded into her home. She pulls her service pistol, and she's a white woman, by the way, and there's a black man in the apartment, and she fires two shots. One hits him in the chest and kills him dead. Turns out it wasn't her apartment, and she killed an innocent man who was sitting on his couch eating ice cream. And she got convicted the other day of murder, and she's going to serve 10 years in prison, which is a lot lighter than she could have served if it was like a first-degree premeditated murder. So I think the jury gave her a little bit of leniency on the charge itself. But nonetheless, she's a 31-year-old woman. She's going to spend the next 10 years in her life in prison. Therefore, she just gave up her entire reproductive years, which is kind of a big sentence for a woman, to say the least. But nonetheless, let's break this down a little bit further. Is Amber Guyger a cold-hearted killer? And Botham Jean, who the guy that was killed, by the way. Let's actually take pause and pray for the repose of his soul, because he was needlessly gunned down in a conflict that probably shouldn't have happened. But nonetheless, Amber Guyger, she was, I think, probably a victim of circumstance in terms of what our culture has done to people in our society. And this is Catholic Dad actually getting on my soapbox a little bit, because being a cop's not easy. My dad was NYPD. He was a ghetto cop. He shot multiple people. He was held hostage. He had a bounty on his head. And he had to do a lot of hard things in his life, difficult things that are difficult for a man, which I mean physically difficult for a man, like beating people up, physically arresting people before the day of tasers, people high on all sorts of drugs. And he had to get in a lot of like battle and conflict. And I think he was darn good at his job. And I think he was a great police officer, I suspect so. But when you throw a woman in the mix, like society has decided, well, so when my dad became a cop, only men were allowed to be police officers in New York. No women were, but society kind of evolves. It pushes and it changes, and it goes, there's social revolutions and so on and so forth. And it's put a lot of women in the shoes of police officers, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I really don't. But I must say, having a woman in combat with criminals is probably not a good thing. And in fact, I, as Catholic Dad, I, as a father of 9 children, spouse of a woman for 21 plus years, I would never, ever, ever ask my daughters or my wife to go into that situation, because criminals, as my dad has told me, are opportunists, and they're willing to do anything to get their way. And if they have the physical strength over a woman, which most criminal men do, it's going to put them in really hairy situations most of the time. So here's a woman, 31-year-old, slender gal, it would appear as if, like not robustly built, not super muscular. She walks in an apartment with Botham Jean, who is, he's probably, I don't know if he was big or strong or whatever else, but even if he were an average-sized man, he still out-muscled her for sure. And she, I suspect, felt fright for her life. And she probably gunned him down, being tired after a long shift, think he was in her apartment, and didn't know what was going on. And that's a travesty. It's a travesty on so many different ways. Like if it were a male police officer, I think they probably could have gotten a little bit of physical combat, fisticuffed, and worked it out. I mean, like, hey, what are you doing in here? Oh, I'm sorry, it's the wrong apartment, or whatever else. But she probably panicked because another man was in her apartment, and she knew she was physically outnumbered by him. And therefore, that's probably why Botham Jean was shot and killed. Now, all that being said is, was it really murder? And I don't know, because murder is something that is you do intentionally, like you actually go in, you actually want to kill somebody. She said on 911 calls and in the trial, I didn't know. I thought it was my apartment. I didn't know it was his apartment. I got it wrong. I was at the wrong level in the parking garage, and I walked into the wrong apartment. I thought it was my apartment. I thought there was a home intruder. which means she had no intent to go into the wrong apartment. She also had no intent to kill the guy, which I think would probably make it manslaughter. But nonetheless, the justice of Dallas decided that it was murder. Now, the unbelievable story of this, unbelievable part of this whole story was after she was convicted of murder and she was going to serve 10 years in jail, essentially her entire reproductive life as a woman, which means she will probably never have a family, which I think is a big deal if you ask me. Brant Jean, Botham's younger brother, asks a strange request of the judge, and he says, "Can I ask a favor?" And the judge says, "What's that?" He said, "I want to hug the defendant. I don't want her to go to jail. She's going to go to jail, but I just want to hug her." And he gives her essentially Christian forgiveness, which the whole courtroom apparently broke out in tears. And well, I don't know. What a wonderful gift. That's all I have to say. If Botham, which it sounds like he was a wonderful man, based upon like the testimony of everybody that knew him, was anything like his brother, this is a horrific, great tragedy, and which shouldn't be reproduced. And perhaps, I don't know if you could do anything to avoid in the future. You know, mistakes happen, mistakes occur. But nonetheless, I think probably Botham, we have to pray for the repose of his soul, because he was unnecessarily gunned down. He is apparently a wonderful man. Well, we would pray even if he weren't a wonderful man, but he sounds like a wonderful man. But I must say, the act of his brother, Brant Jean, it was heroic to say the least. And I must say, Brant brought Botham much honor, and I think Botham probably brought Brant much honor, just being the guy he was. And it was a hard situation. I don't know how to say it any differently, but being a cop's hard, and making mistakes is even harder. And let's pray for everybody involved in the whole trial, the whole case. Amber Guyger, hopefully she can find solace in God for what happened, and hopefully all the Jeans, the moms and the dads, and everybody involved can forgive the police officer who made a really horrific error. And so this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe, get the Mass, and pray the Daily Rosary. And oh, by the way, I guess, I'm kind of a justice guy. I'm a cop's son. And I'm not talking a little, or like a mild cop's son, like a cop that kind of broke up domestic fights and all the other stuff. I'm talking a cop that was street battling all day long in the South Bronx. And I'm kind of a justice guy, but being a cop is hard. It's damn hard. And when errors occur, please don't castigate and destroy the cop's reputation. But all that being said, is justice needs to be served. And so I pray and hope that justice is served in this case. And may God be with you all. Please like or subscribe, get the Mass, and pray the Daily Rosary. God bless.